Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar Wednesday. Today's topic will be studying Chinese at Sydney. So the options, benefits and opportunities of Chinese studies. We thank you so much for being here this afternoon and for joining us. I can see that we've got a few that have joined already. So we will make a start. Before we do, I just wanted to recognise and pay respect to the elders and communities past, present and emerging of the lands that the University of Sydney's campuses stand on. For thousands of years, they have shared and exchanged knowledges across innumerable generations for the benefit of all. Before I hand over to our first presenter, we do have some valuable presenters in the room today. We've got some academics and students present. So I'll introduce and one of my staff members as well from our school's outreach team. So we've got my colleague Shanti, and we've got Dr. Irene An, academic fellow in Chinese studies, Dr. Yu Sang, academic fellow in Chinese studies, and we're also joined by two students currently studying Chinese studies. We've got James Hassett and we've got Chris Chang. So thank you so much. All will be providing very valuable content, and we will draw your attention to the Q&A function chat. So if there's any questions that you have, please pop it in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end. And the webinar will conclude at 5:30. So if there's any questions that we do have after that time, we will provide you with email addresses as well that you can contact us on after the webinar, and we will do a follow-up of the links and recording as well. We'll kick off, and I'll hand now over to begin to Dr. Irene An. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm Irene An in the Department of Chinese Studies. So I'll just briefly talk to you about this. Why you choose to study Chinese in the Department of Chinese Studies at the Sydney Uni, right? We have one of the most comprehensive and oldest Chinese programs. So the biggest benefit of studying Chinese at Sydney Uni is you have the most flexibility. So basically, whatever your language level is in your high school, right? So either you are introductory or intermediate or advanced, whether you take beginners or continuous or heritage or even Chinese in literature, right? So any of them, you'll find something here that suits you. So we have introductory, which is for design for beginners. We have intermediate pathway, which is suitable for HSC, continuous. And if you reach 80 above, or you're studying HSC extension, then we have advanced pathway. Right, so next slide, please. And also the flexibilities also is reflected in whatever you do, right? You can major in Chinese if you want to devote a lot of your time to study Chinese and to build that very solid foundation. Then you can choose one of your majors as Chinese. So you need basically 8 semester-length units to complete that major, or you can choose to minor in Chinese, which you only need 6 units study, or you can choose to use your electives. So no matter how many you want to do, it's your choice. You can do 1 or 2 units, or maybe 3 or 4. So it's up to you. You can always find something that can work around your degree to fit in the whole degree structure. And then what is also very popular in our program is one of the in-country study programs. So I think both Chris and James, they have been on this program, which is really popular. It's run currently, this year will be the first year we restore the program that after the break due to COVID, right? But this July will start to send people again to Beijing, the University of Peking. So one of the most prestigious universities in China, right? And then we run a 4-week intensive program in there. And you can get like 6 credit, just like 1 semester unit here, right? But you can experience Chinese culture firsthand at PKU, and as well as learning the language intensively. So when you come back, you can choose to do, whatever. If that's the first unit you do at Sydney Uni, you can choose to continue. Or most people will have during their study at the department, and then they will choose to do one of the in-country study, and then they will have a chance to skip level, maybe, when they come back. But most people after coming back, it's been very successful, the program, and most people coming back will increase their motivation, and they will be lacking to do Chinese. They will have much more motivation than before. I mean, then before they went to Peking, right? Yeah, and that's mostly about the courses. And we have a lot of other type of activities also run at the university, and Dr. Yu Sang will introduce all those activities now. Thank you.
Thank you, An 老师. Hello, everyone. Now I will introduce 2 activities and 1 program in the discipline of Chinese studies. First activity is called Chinese Table. It's a weekly peer study program. Each week, you can have 1 hour to chat with native Chinese speakers. Those native Chinese speakers are students from the University of Sydney who volunteer to help you with your Chinese learning. They are very friendly and knowledgeable about China. You can practice your Chinese speaking. You can also talk about your Chinese work with them. You are free to talk about anything, like any aspect of contemporary Chinese society with them. At the Chinese Table, you have the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations, or to be put in a very small group with only 3 or 4 people in the group. In this way, it's easy for you to make friends with native Chinese speakers, and also to improve your Chinese language skills from learning from them, from those native Chinese speakers. And the second activity is called Chinese Chair. This activity is fortnightly meeting group focusing on culture appreciation and sharing. Students from different cultural backgrounds meet and share their understanding of Chinese culture every 2 weeks. At the Chinese Chair, you will have opportunities to watch Chinese movies and listen to presentations, and also to be involved in various activities. For example, you will have the opportunity to learn and practice some Chinese arts, such as calligraphy and paper cuttings. You will also have the chance to make Chinese food, like dumplings. It's very interesting. And through these activities, your your understanding about Chinese culture, language, and society will be deepened. And the program I will talk about is called Experience China. Partnered with Peking University, this program introduces students to the basics of Chinese language and culture. you will have a chance to immerse yourself in China and experience the Chinese culture firsthand. You will take Chinese language classes and be involved in various culture activities during the 3 weeks of this intensive program. You will also make friends with your language partner assigned by Peking University and have some interactive activities with local students at Peking University. Through this program, so you will be able to use Chinese in authentic context, and also you will be able to learn more about Chinese culture, society, and history. So as you know, a lot of people in the world use Chinese as their native or second language. China has a very long history. Its culture is both rich and profound. So definitely, Chinese culture and language are worth studying, and the University of Sydney is a place where you can have many opportunities to learn them well. Thank you, everyone. So now it's time to have our students, James and Chris, to talk about their experience.
Thank you very much. My name is James Hassett. I'm just going to speak about my experience learning Chinese at the University of Sydney. For a brief introduction, I'm a graduate of the University of Sydney and I studied law, philosophy, and Chinese studies. And I'll be breaking this speech up into 3 main sections. I'll first be speaking about my story of deciding to learn Chinese, my experience of studying Chinese at the University of Sydney. Secondly, I'll be speaking about the benefits I believe there are to be enjoyed more generally by engaging in this program and choosing to study Chinese, as well as those that I've personally experienced. And lastly, I'll just give some tips that I think will be helpful for students to improve their Chinese level. So to my first point, my story for learning Chinese was quite sudden and unexpected to both myself and those around me. I had no previous experience studying a foreign language, and I was starting at 18 years old, which some people might consider quite late. And Chinese is considered a level 5 language in terms of difficulty for native English speakers, which by the foreign agency that trains US diplomats is the highest ranking, as well as Japanese and Arabic, with French and Spanish being level 1s, lower, more easily attained languages. But I went with it, even though there seemed to be some challenges in front of me in choosing it so late and it being quite difficult. And as to my experience, so that's why I ended up picking it just really out of interest more than anything. And I think in life, sometimes you have to follow your interests and not just do what everybody else is doing. And my experience of studying at the University of Sydney has been extremely positive. And I engaged in all of the activities that have just been touched on by Dr. An and Dr. Sung, including Chinese table and chair, as well as the in-country language program to the prestigious Peking University, which you guys might note is currently ranked 12th in the world in the QS University rankings and number 1 in China. And the QS rankings and Times are the 2 most frequently used university rankings in the world. So yeah, I think the Sydney University Language Department is very thorough and very flexible, and they offer a very wholesome education in terms of Chinese because they offer all of these additional layers of support to your learning. Learning Chinese is kind of a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes a long time to slowly build upon your level. I think some people exaggerate as to how quickly you can pick this language up, especially when you're in Australia. I think without the environment, I'm actually in Shanghai right now, and I'm speaking Chinese all the time. But without the environment, it is difficult. So you need a lot of discipline. And that's why I think it's so important that the university has all of these additional layers to help you facilitate that learning. It's not enough to go to class for a couple of hours each week and do a bit of homework. You know, you really need to integrate it into your life, and it's sort of got to be a lifestyle. But that really helps when you have, for example, Chinese table and chair, where I personally made friends. And when you have friends, they not only teach you a lot about the culture, but they teach you a lot about the language, especially if you get your language to a decent level where it's above their English level. So then naturally you guys, which might take some time, but naturally you guys will speak more and more Chinese. And that's a good way to socially integrate the language process. So that's my experience at Sydney University. Moving to the second part that I spoke of in the introduction, I think there are two main benefits to learning Chinese on a practical level. I think one is a social benefit and the other is a business benefit. In terms of the social benefit, which I'll speak about first, it's quite self-explanatory, but when you learn a new language, you're exposed to a new culture, you're opening yourself up to a new world, both philosophically and culturally. China is an ancient culture with a rich history, and there's a lot to be learned by really delving deeply into the Chinese philosophy, such as there's many different types of Chinese philosophy. For example, Confucianism, which still is very popular today in Shanghai. I think that is definitely felt. And just how they approach life in general, it's really interesting to compare because the West and the East, they really do things in their own way. It's not like going to London where it's a little different to Sydney, but maybe a bit bigger, but the culture, it's all quite similar. The East really look at things in quite a different way. So it really allows you to compare and contrast your own worldview in every way you can think of in terms of approaching life, even beauty standards, everything. There's a different way of looking at it, and it's quite interesting to be exposed to that. So you also meet a lot of new people, which is great. And there's a lot of great people that you can become friends with that you wouldn't otherwise be able to be friends with if you didn't study the language, be it with respect to friendships or romantically. And the second would be business. So with respect to business, I believe personally, if I speak quite frankly, to get the benefit of Chinese in business, the language level required is significantly higher than the language level you need to get a social benefit. If you really want to engage in Chinese business, like I am in Shanghai, engage in internships over here, you really need to have a high level. So if you want the benefit, I think you should be grounded in the reality that it's going to take a lot of hard work, and it's probably got to be a top 3 priority in your life if you want a business benefit from it. But if you're willing to make that sacrifice in terms of business, it really can open doors. It's opened massive doors for me. Shanghai and China in general is growing so fast, and being in Shanghai, it's like a different energy. You feel like anything's possible and anything can change. Whereas I don't know, I feel like the upward mobility in Sydney, it's just a little different. There's just so much going on here. It's close to so many other countries. It's crazy how fast things happen as well. I mean, with Australia, we've been waiting 30 years for the fast train from Melbourne to Sydney. It hasn't even happened. You look in China, things are just going off so quick. So yeah, in terms of business, I think it's a higher standard, but if you're willing to do it, it really pays. It really pays dividends. Socially, people will be just so happy if you can say a few sentences, and they'll be like, oh, they really respect that you're learning the language because it shows a respect for their culture, which they're very proud of. So yeah, that's the second part. In terms of some suggestions, I don't think I'll be giving anything too new. Obviously, you want to be speaking it as much as you can. You want to integrate it as part of your life. So make friends, watch Chinese movies regularly. I watch a lot of Chinese movie series and TV shows, movies in general. I listen to podcasts. I'm always trying to keep it in my brain. And once you start Chinese, you want to really focus on imitating how they sound, because with the tones and everything, try and be precise, because I'm still working on it myself, my accent, but you have to build a strong foundation to build upon. And if you make big mistakes at the beginning and you don't correct them, you don't have to be completely perfect, but try your best, because then you don't have to go back, unlearn what you learned and then relearn. You just have to learn from the beginning. So unlearning and learning obviously is more time consuming than just learning well from the beginning. So yeah, listening a lot, speaking as much you can with your friends, and creating an environment in general where Chinese is just integrated. You need that just to put the hours in. So yeah, they're my three sort of topics. I hope it was useful for anyone listening to me. And yeah, I'll let Christopher get to his experience. Thanks very much.
Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. I'm in my final year of studying a Bachelor of Arts and International Studies, and I'm majoring in the Chinese language. So I've studied Chinese for the past 4 years at USyd, and I've taken the advanced pathway, and all these classes that I've taken were actually taught by Dr. An. So I learned Chinese at a general level throughout primary and high school. And I really want to bring my Chinese language level to the highest it can possibly be in uni, just for future job opportunities and for the other great opportunities it can provide socially, culturally, and even emotionally that James kind of touched on. I'll try and keep this quick, but just to kind of build on what everyone else has already said. Why study a foreign language? Well, I think, as we've already kind of discussed, many business relations now are carried out using Chinese and with Chinese companies. For example, James touched on these points a bit already, but again, the ability to speak Mandarin Chinese is perhaps one of the most desired traits in the job market at the moment, as both an employee or as an independent contractor. We can use Chinese in jobs in the international field, obviously conducting business, consulting, in the political field, if that's what you're interested in. It also allows new perspectives to be developed and provides a host of opportunities to meet new people and experience new things. And I think in terms of why the University of Sydney is the best place to choose to study Chinese is because, well, the first thing is there are several levels available. For example, Chinese goes from level 1 all the way to 5, and it also branches out to a business studies couple of subjects as well, and they're tailored, or as Miss Anne mentioned, the unit in which you choose to study is tailored towards your individual ability. And there, on top of that, there are also cultural units available in addition to the language units, which I've found provides a more holistic learning experience. And I think teachers here are really great. They really help you to determine which level of difficulty and content is most applicable to you as a student. And all the staff have been extremely helpful over these years, and they're always happy to assist you. You need only reach out. I think it's great because it also allows you to choose kind of which area of Chinese language you want to specialize in. And what I mean by this is, for example, the level 5 units, 5A and 5B, the two separate units, are more focused on literary study and Chinese texts themselves. But much of the vocabulary and the content are still applicable to real life. On the other hand, Chinese for business purposes, and both their units, A and B, teach content as their title suggests, and it's much more targeted and focused in teaching Chinese for use in business contexts. So James and I both took this course, and we were both taught by Miss Anne as well. So I think it's good because it kind of allows you to choose which path you want to go down and specialize in. A bit about my own overseas Chinese study experiences. So I went to PKU and did a 4-week intensive course via the in-country study in 2019. It was great. I got to learn in one of the best unis in China. We explored Beijing and we really immersed ourselves in the culture. And I think it's good because you make new friends, not just from USyd with the group that you go with, but also with the local students there. And I think that's probably one of the best ways to improve on your Chinese and to really immerse yourself in the culture. And that is to interact and speak with the students there. And I think, honestly, it was one of the best and most memorable experiences of my life. Luckily, we got back just before COVID hit, and I think they're just starting up the unit again now. As Dr. Yu mentioned, Experience China is a little more focused on cultural immersion and kind of exploration, I guess, rather than the in-country studies focus, I guess, more on, well, study, right, or the academic aspect. It only lasts 3 weeks as opposed to the 4 weeks of the in-country study. So that's just something to note. So kind of just a few words to wrap up. I think, you know, learning Chinese, even as for me, I've kind of been, I grew up as an Australian-born Chinese person. I've been learning since primary and high school, but even then you still find that it can be quite difficult sometimes. But I'm extremely grateful that I still learned Chinese over these past few years at uni, and I met lots of new people and made good friends, saw new places. I furthered my skills beyond what I thought was possible. And I think it's definitely helped me a lot, not just in kind of the job prospects, but really in opening up your perspective to the world. So I definitely recommend learning Chinese at USyd. So any questions as well? I think we'll probably all leave our contacts, emails in the chat. And any questions, you can email me. At least I'll leave mine. So if you have anything that you want to ask me, please do so. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Irene, Dr. Yu, James and Chris. All that information was quite detailed and quite valuable. So we've wrapped up in such a timely manner as well. And we've got some questions that we will address, the ones that we've got here before we conclude the webinar. But as Chris mentioned, feel free to we'll post some contact emails in the chat. So like that, if you need to get in touch with us or have any questions after the webinar, we'll absolutely touch base with you. So feel free to, as the academics and students, to type or answer any of the questions live. I might read out a couple of ones from Ellen. Ellen's asked, will we have Chinese in-country program this year to PKU?
Yes. So now we're running the July intensive, and then as for the December intensive, I'm not 100% sure, but very likely we will run. Definitely we will run. It's just depending on the numbers of students we have. And it's with all the uncertainties nowadays, I can't guarantee now, but definitely on our department part, we will run it for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Irene. And also Ellen's asked the Chinese in country this July, the date for that, or is there somewhere available that is online?
For the July, yes, I can send you, if you email me, I can send you the link. But it's mainly for the students who are enrolled in the Chinese units right now. Yeah, it's not open to students outside the Department of Chinese Studies this year.
Thank you for that. I popped some email links in the chat as well. So if anyone's got any further emails as well, please, further queries, please send them through. Thank you so much. And also, sorry, one more question from Janine. Are there any scholarships to study in China for a year?
I think our university has exchange program. If you are planning to study in China for a whole year, that might be the way. I mean, to go through the university exchange, yes, they do offer scholarships.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. Hopefully that answers everyone's questions. Really appreciate everyone on line today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for oh, perfect. So Dr. Irene An has posted her email in the chat. So just before we conclude, I just wanted to draw your attention to the emails in the chat as well. So feel free to email any of those emails addresses and we can get back to you in a timely manner with any queries you may have. There's a link in the chat as well. We have an upcoming event called Languages at Sydney on this Thursday, the 27th of July. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about Chinese studies, feel free to come along to that as well. So information on that is on our website, and we're currently accepting registrations, or if you subscribe to receive updates, and then registration information will be available shortly. So that might conclude. I'm just double checking the chat. So no, that's okay. No troubles at all. Thank you, Janine. Thank you so much. It's perfect. Okay, let's just have a look, just double checking. Okay, perfect. No, I think we've answered it all, but like I mentioned, if there's anything else, feel free to contact us all after the webinar. Thank you again to everyone who has joined. I really appreciate your time and valuable experience and content delivered. So we all hope to see everyone study at the University of Sydney fairly soon, but please do follow up with any questions. Have a look at the links that we've provided and let us know how we can further assist you. So have a great evening and we hope to speak to you very soon. Thank you again. Have a lovely evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.